Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body broadcast with Austin and Marty. And today we have another juicy topic for you. We are going to talk about some of the, or all of the, or most of the realities when it comes to getting in extreme condition. So pertaining to, mainly pertaining to the more conditioned categories, your men's bodybuilding, women's physique, women's figure, and I would even say any more men's physique for that
Yep.
matter.
Yep. I would too, for sure.
And then also, depending on federation, bikini's definitely becoming more conditioned, especially here in the NPC.
Yep.
It seems to be the trend. It's still bikini. It's not consistent show to show. I don't think it ever will be, but it definitely has gone the way of conditioning in recent years. And
Yep.
and in all reality, it's that type of conditioning, getting the glutes and the hamstring tie-ins and stuff visible and etched out. That's just not something that is easily attainable for, you don't coast through prep and attain that. People can knock bikini or whatever, but there's plenty of girls that have to push pretty hard to even get in that type of shape.
Yep.
So yeah, we just wanted to talk about what it actually entails. And I think a good way to preface this is the way I look at it is when we start getting past our natural set point, when we get the further away we get from that, the more those metabolic adaptations occur, the more things start going south. And if you keep pushing further and further and further for longer and longer, it's stressful on the body. So, of course, we're going to run into not only metabolic adaptations, but other things start happening too. That's when our sleep starts to decline. That's when our training performance declines. That's when your energy declines. That's when your mood declines. That's when, everything declines.
Yep. Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except your hunger.
Yeah, true. That's valid. It's very much, it's at a point, it's very much as much mental or more mental than it is physical. We can physically, our body's going to be capable of surviving that contest prep, right?
Yes.
It's going to survive that short-term, suffering or whatever you want to call it. But mentally, can you survive it? Because our body's also biologically made to take us away from those things. It wants to store body fat. It wants to make us eat. It wants to play tricks on our mind. It doesn't want to get up off the couch. It wants to conserve energy. So literally everything's just playing against you at that point.
Yeah.
It just gets, at least for me, I know for me, it's more so just convincing myself to just do it, just do it, just do it. Man, I've done it enough times now that I know that's all it is. Just got to do it, So, yeah. So what are some of the things that you run into, or maybe talk to your newer clients about that haven't, or just, it doesn't even have to be new clients, it just be anyone, because there's people that compete for 5 or 10 years that never really get in true good contest shape.
Yep.
So somebody that is getting to that level one time, not the person that shows up, it's 6 weeks out. You get those stories backstage at how easy the prep was and stuff, but they still look 8 weeks out on stage.
Yeah.
Not those people. I want to talk to the guy that is the soles of his feet are bleeding.
Yeah.
By the time, because he did so much cardio.
Oh, the side story on that one quickly is I remember Dorian Yates talking about I think he either duct tape or wore pillows below his feet because he dieted the fat off of the bottom of his feet. He was walking on pretty much his bone. He was shuffling around on pillows. Yep.
Yeah, it's not. That's the thing. At a point, it's starting. That's something that people just don't take into consideration. Is you're pulling obviously fat that you need for just normal function off your body.
Yes.
And things start shutting down. I mean, things internally start just not working because you have a priority list. Your body's going to have a checklist. All right, what do we need to put this energy towards? Because all of the involuntary functions going on in your body, so digestion, your freaking heart beating, your lungs pumping air, all those things still require energy, right?
Yeah.
They still require some type of energy. So, I mean, your body will, it's going to look at a priority list. What do we need to get rid of to keep this human being alive while they strip every morsel of fat off? So, to me, and I'll let you chime in on this too, to me, what's the most frightening part about this, I think, is what happens after the prep, that transition, because I think that is one of the more difficult things to navigate for people and to actually execute. You hear, because we've talked about what it might take for a female, a small female to get in shape. They're going sub 1,000, sub 900 calories all day long. Like, it's just that's not uncommon. And anyone that throws out those fear mongering things, well, they probably haven't worked with anyone normal or haven't gotten anyone in shape. So to me, like I said, it's more so what happens afterwards. And I think short term, we're able to, if you have a good exit strategy, I mean, you can combat you can normalize someone pretty well. One of my biggest fears too, and you've talked about this too, is like building this into your coaching is trying to convince people the value of staying on post show and like execute properly post show. Yeah. So what are some things that you talk about with them? Because I'll straight up tell you what I do with some people. I'll scare them.
Yep.
I'll just straight up scare them if I have to. Like, if they don't want to listen to me, I'll tell them just horror stories, and that normally works.
Yep. No, absolutely. So because that's, we'll call it their last resort, but sure. Absolutely. I will say, either that or I'll show examples of some of this stuff of like 40-pound weight gains on people very quickly after the show. But just having that chat around the 4 weeks out mark or whatever, so that they still are able to function pretty decently, we'll say. But just letting them know that, the post-show period, which is going to be at least the first 2 to 4 weeks minimum after the show, are going to be just as important as what we do leading up to the show in terms of regaining metabolic health, psychological health, mental health, and just ensuring that everything is going to be running A-okay in the body in terms of regaining your metabolism back to where it was and getting rid of those adaptations that you've had and things like that. And then being able to just provide them with the knowledge. And then it is like, I'm never really trying to sell my coaching in terms of from a financial perspective at that point, because I always like to offer at least 2 weeks of post-show care where I have to do at least 2 assessments with them after that, set them up with a base plan of what they can do for a nutrition plan going forward, talk to them about it. And I usually bug them the hell out of them every single day after the show, say, hey, how are you doing? Hey, how are you doing? Hey, how are you doing? So that we can kind of have that communication there. But just, those are definitely it. It's sometimes over dramatized in terms of like people saying they gained 40 pounds in 2 days. And then sometimes it's under dramatized in terms of, I just went back into the gym and everything was fine. Whereas I don't know who that might be, people that remain enhanced and maybe they've always had a great relationship with food or something along those lines. But I think it's actually a little bit ignorant if we don't share at least a little bit of the post-show horror stories, because that info is out there, and especially if it is, like you said, either a first-time competitor or an inexperienced multiple-time competitor, maybe they don't realize that just how not only common this stuff is, but how if you have the right habits and have the right systems and the right tools, that it can be for the most part extremely avoided, that you don't need to go through all this, because I think you've heard this too, that some people will expect that they're going to go through this horrible rebound phase and just to like almost give up and be like, well, I know I'm going to be eating like a donkey post show, I know that it's going to have to happen. But no, it doesn't have to happen if you've got the right type of coaching kind of set in place, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that there. Also, let's do this too here, Austin. Let's kind of preface what we mean by like extreme conditioning. So I usually would say that's about sub 10% for men. And then what would you say for women, like kind of that below 16, 14%?
Yeah, I mean, so for women, if you are, it's getting those stubborn fat stores off. So for a female, getting, hams and glutes visible.
Yep.
Type condition. That's hard. That's hard for a female because biologically that's just outside of a few outliers. That's just not natural.
Yep.
Like
and thighs too, for the most part. I would say thighs, depending upon where they hold their fat. Yep.
Right. Yeah. And then men, wherever. This is the thing. You get this question. I'll say, it's a male. My
Sure.
low back.
Mm-hmm.
I can never get my low back in.
Right.
Okay. Everything else comes in. I can never get my low back in. I was like, what's the trick? I'm like, get leaner, lose more body fat. That's the trick. I mean, that's the thing. So those are the situations where now this individual does get their low back in. They might be lean 6 weeks out, and it take them the next 6 weeks of just, with one foot in the grave just to get that damn low back in.
You just described me absolutely perfectly. That is me. Like I will have nothing left on the front of me at all, and and then my lower back will just hang around like no one's business. And so on that note, if anyone's curious about why that kind of stuff is there, like girls will say, why is my ass not in shape versus my abs? Because generally, and this is I've seen the opposite as well, but generally girls will have their abs and their lower back in a hell of a lot quicker than they will of their glutes, their hams, and sometimes quads. And then men will have their quads and things in before they will have their lower abs and their lower back, depending upon the guy. Sometimes I've seen it be glutes as well on guys, but I call it male pattern fatness and female pattern fatness because that's just genetically where we happen to have our fat like that, though, right? However, I'm that perfect example of that lower back. Like I had everything else ready, and it would have taken, like, so for my last photo shoot where I did get my leanest, I still would have had if I'd have died at another 4 weeks, I bet you the lower back would have went, but I wasn't looking to be in contest shape. I was just looking to be in we'll say great shape for a photo shoot. But yeah, that's what it will take. I love that analogy of pretty much 1 foot in the grave, because that's what it takes for some people. Some people can do the higher elevated stuff, but then to get extremely lean, you're going to have to do some tactics that you will not necessarily like, that are potentially, at least for the next little bit, bordering on unhealthy. Like, let's be serious. This is extreme levels. That's why we use the term extreme, because it is that's exactly what it is. It's levels of body fat that are not only unmanageable for being year round, but if you keep them year round, will be very metabolically and health wise, let alone mentally. Just you're not going to have a lot of energy capacity to be thinking or solving world crisis problems with that low of calories and that high of volume of cardio or whatever it is. But it's just not maintainable and not sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, I try to describe the way that I would feel that close, not even that close. I mean, within, once I start getting into that territory, and out of body is like an out of body experience. You're you're just so spaced out just because nothing is functioning. There's just not. It's funny because I should make a damn journal. I just don't have the energy to do it.
The time you should be making a journal, you don't get the energy to, right? Yep.
But just like the weird shit that happens that shouldn't even happen, like going hypo, trying to walk for cardio, and crawling into the kitchen and just fucking, I had blood on my socks one day because the bottom of my feet started bleeding. Mm-hmm. And just shit. I mean, and this is the thing. Like, I still have to function and answer people all day and, whatever for the job and record podcasts and all that jazz. But, luckily that's kind of muscle memory, you know? Mm-hmm. Just, that's pretty much muscle memory. But I tell you what, like no joke. Full disclosure. Every time I get to the end, I'm like, man, holy shit. Forgot that it was this difficult. Or post show. Now I do great post show periods. I normally have a pretty good rebound and all that, but I struggle. It's hard.
Of course.
Oh man, it's hard.
It's never going to go away. The full struggle. No.
Yeah. It's so difficult, and I struggle with just I'd say a lot of what I struggle with is just those adaptations are so extreme when it comes to like things like hunger signaling and stuff. It's just so out of whack.
Yep.
From basically starving for so long that just you never, that bottomless pit feeling where I could easily, if I wanted, I could easily be that guy that gains 50 pounds in the first week. Mm-hmm. And because I know for a fact that if I started just eating, it would be all hell would break loose.
Sure.
And even now I'm going on 4 weeks post show, and my hunger signals still aren't normal.
Thank you for saying that, because those adaptations in reverse do not go away that quickly. Even though you are eating, and even though you are definitely above what you were eating before the show, the hunger is still there, close, not exactly the same, but it's still relatively similar to before the show, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. It is. And a lot of people express that it's harder, post show. And yeah, because I mean, most of the time when you see the binging and stuff, it's not pre-contest, it's post show.
Yeah.
And that's just because now also you don't have the show date in sight. Mm-hmm. and all that, which makes it more difficult. And I'm not show date oriented like that. Like I very much a big picture type of person. So I mean, yes. That doesn't bother me. It's just the pure physiological aspect of it is just really freaking hard. My training, I went out. It's funny, the other day, I was so weak during prep that literally, I went from in my off season, I got fairly strong for, in my own standards for the off season. And, where I didn't squat for probably the last, probably 8 weeks of my prep, because literally if I just even bent down, I felt like I was going to black out and fall down. Mm-hmm. And I went out and tried to squat the other day, and I got way ahead of myself. So I did a couple sets, worked up, did the bar, added a plate, added 2 plates, and went up to 3 plates. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to I haven't done a single set to failure since I got done with the show, because I've just been so weak and my nervous system's so whacked. And so I'm like, I'm just going to rip one off here. Ruined for 4 days.
Yep.
4 days. Like it felt like my damn eyes were going to fall out of my head. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't okay set, but it wasn't like anything that I could handle when I'm at full capacity. You know what I mean? And I wasn't like I was doing any kind of, I had 315 on the bar, and I could normally do time and a half those reps.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, you got to take that into account. Those are the things that you have to be okay with. I mean, you have to be okay with the fact that the deeper the hole you dig in the prep to get there, to go to that place, the more you're going to have to climb out afterwards. That's just reality. And now I'm kind of the point where I'm getting glimpses of feeling better, but then I get slapped in the face with reminders that I'm not.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I get little glimpses here and there of just some normalcy, like more so like the mood part of it.
Okay.
When I'm just when I'm just sitting and at rest. Right. But when I actually start doing something physical, like this week, first 3 weeks, I didn't change. I kept my stimulants in because I wanted to get my food up before I started trying to pull my stimulants out.
Yes. Okay.
Well, this week I yanked out caffeine, and I haven't, in my caffeine use, I might've got up to like 500 milligrams a day in prep, which it's a little bit, but people do way more than that. Mm-hmm. Shit. I'm like, dude, my legs, I'm like, I feel like I have like those prisoners way back that used to have the chains hooked to their
Oh
legs and
yeah.
dragging like the weights around. Like, Jesus God. And I've been tracking my sleep on, I got one of the Aura rings,
Sure.
which is wicked cool, by the way, but I've been watching cause I've had all those adrenal issues and stuff. And I was watching the sleep is the one thing that I literally lay in bed. I'm like, please make it through tonight. Please be a good night. And because it gets so bad in prep. And I has this little thing, your resting heart rate, okay, throughout the night. And I can tell how just messed up the adrenal patterns are because I'll get to every single night I wake up, it's getting better. I'm waking up a little bit less, but it's still these certain times I wake up, my heart rate will go normal, spike to like 120 and I'm up.
Yep.
Out of nowhere. And then back down. And guess what? When it spikes up to 120, what's the first thing I want to do when I wake up? Eat.
Yep.
Eat. Okay. So in prep, you know what I did intentionally is I intentionally scheduled a meal at that time. Not just something I could just grab and eat so I could actually fall back to sleep. Well, now the problem is my hunger patterns are adjusted to eating in the middle of the night.
Yep.
Okay. So now I have to redig myself out of that freaking hole. And so it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't type of thing. And it sucks, man. I mean, it's hard. It's like, there's just, I've going through it right now with some just, people that are post show and we're tracking like some people that really had to dig, I'm talking like a guy that he got in the best shape of his life. He finally got visible glutes and all that stuff. And, he was in the probably 190 on stage, light heavyweight. And he was eating, like 1,300 calories and doing 2 or 3 cardio sessions a day and all this shit. And he worked with me a little bit post show, but he's on his own now, but he's been keeping tabs on him and helping with the recovery and stuff. And, yeah, all that stuff's real, man. He's like, man, I'm so glad I got in that shape, but holy shit, this is awful.
Yep.
And yeah, it's hard. And, and I think we have some good, some of those good case studies now, like on the natural bodybuilders and stuff. We've talked about those and how, what it actually does to your hormones. And, and you talked about, well, both of us, we talked about the whole subjective well-being thing, and that you think you're okay, but you're not really okay yet type of thing.
Yes.
Just had that the other day with one of my gals. She was in the same boat. She did multiple shows. She's a pro in one of the natural federations down here, and she's a bikini pro, but she got in the best shape of her life, glutes and hams in this year, like the whole nine, but it was tough. Like, she was eating basically nothing, and she's a dance instructor, teaches frickin' dance all day long, does cardio on top of that, and she's like 40, you know what I mean? So she's wrecked. I mean, she was wrecked. She's feeling better, but we got her labs back. I'm like, you're not better yet.
Yep.
Like, we still have work to do.
Yep. No, that's exactly it. The subjective stuff is huge. And I fall into that a lot with clients post show, is that they will feel good, or they'll feel prepared. And then they might not have the exact same situation as you in terms of you go in, you put the 3-plate squat on, then before you know it, you're wrecked for 4 days. But I stress that so much, is that I know what you think you can do right now, but please, slow progressive resistance, please, especially if you're going to be working out, or if they haven't had an off week from training in a very long time. I do get them to do at least a deload 5 days, or take like 4 days off the gym or something off of weight training, please, because your body needs that freaking recovery. It just needs it. It's like, oh no, I feel good. I know, but that's that subjective reality we're talking about for sure. Why don't we start talking about the signs of when you're starting to get extremely lean, both like from the physical standpoint, and then from like what the biofeedback can tell you for sure, like that. Let's start out with some of those. I'll start out with some of the ones that I've written down here. Is you don't have like big pockets of fat where you usually do. So for me, this is now my stomach is there's abs for sure. There's definitely abs. Lower back is definitely gone from being harder, because that's the first place I'll put on fat. Is always the last place I'll lose it. And this is most people, if not everybody as well. So my lower back fat will turn from being harder and thicker to more of like a watery feeling, more of like, because you have to think both the gristle on a steak and olive oil are both fat. So, and once it starts to get more watery like, more oily like, that's when it's starting to look at being moved around and be liberated from there. So you'll start visibly having less pockets on there because now the body doesn't have anywhere. The body does not have more storage for fat, because that's what fat is. Fat is stored energy on the body to use on a rainy day. And that's why it stores fat, because it's got 9 calories per gram versus muscle is 4 calories per gram protein. And obviously carbs, you don't store carbs on the body. You can in terms of intramuscular triglycerides, but it's not as, you don't put them all over your body like you do fat. But that's one of the key signs I know there too. And then also just a slowing down of results doing, we'll say regular dieting. What I mean by regular dieting is the same meals day in, day out, the same amount of calories, the same amount of protein, carbs, and fats, same amount of cardio. You start getting to that law of diminishing returns, and you start potentially either slowing down or stopping to lose body fat. And that's when I think then you start to use, that's the realities of now you're going to move into that starting to get extremely lean. What do you know for some of the warning signs, we'll say?
Yeah, you can. It's so cruel, because when you do adapt, you also become more efficient at like burning less calories during activity, all that stuff. And that'll happen to a more extreme extent. The further away from that set point you get, the more adaptations occur, and so on and so forth. I would say just probably metabolically, we'll see there does become a point where, if I'm coaching somebody, for example, and everything is smooth, and we will hit that point where they're adapting so hard, and it's not a matter of, all right, so should we push or pull, or how am I going to refeed them? You basically get to starve mode. Mm-hmm. And it's inevitable. Like we know the science on refeeds. We know how to refeed. We know how to do those things, and I implement all those things with clients. But there are just individuals that they adapt to an extent where you can't diet break them out of that.
Yep.
We don't, like, it's just not going to happen. Like it's not there. You're not going to be able to reverse the adaptation enough to offset it. If that makes sense. You can do what you can. You can try to be as smart as you can about it. You can try to, use your refeeding strategies. If you have time enough in the prep or whatever, use a longer extended diet break. Potentially have days that are a little bit easier where you can back off and reset. But the fact of the matter is, it's just like that stuff becomes it's important, but it becomes a matter of, all right, we just have to figure out how we can just increase caloric expenditure and, calories in, calories out. Like you know on paper that it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
Like, okay, you're like, all right, you should be in a deficit, because it's always hilarious to me. I always look at like what I'm doing at the end of prep, or some of these people that are kind of similar to me, and you would add up, all right, what is approximately the caloric expenditure of their NEAT levels, their training, and their cardio, and then what are they eating? And they should be in like this ridiculously massive deficit, losing like 3 pounds a day,
Yeah.
But it just doesn't pan out like that. And I've heard ridiculous stuff too. Like I've had somebody tell me at one point that, well, the science said that you can only your BMR only adapts to about 10% below its baseline. I'm like, well, that's horse shit. No. But the problem with adaptation that we're not taking into account is that there is more to adaptation than just your basal metabolic rate going down. The biggest one that people miss is, like I said, is the adaptation to how many calories you're actually burning during activity.
Yep.
That goes down drastically. And I don't have a number. I don't have a percentage, but it goes down drastically. You become so cardio efficient and so energy efficient during activity that, you're just not, your training isn't burning as many calories. Your cardio is burning. I'd like to see, the problem with some of these studies too is that they obviously, you probably don't have participants that are willing to literally like almost kill themselves to get this kind of data.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like you're not really getting the person that's quite going to that extent, but I'd love to see what cardio adaptation's like for somebody that's been doing copious amounts for, a couple months and is at the extreme low body fat and eating, super low calories. I'd love to see like what the actual percentage is.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating because those things, they never end up adding up on paper. And you're like, well, we're just going to have to do more. There's not really any way around it. That's just the reality. I mean, you gotta, and then you run into just how, not only from an energy standpoint, but like how time demanding it is.
Yep.
In a day, you know what I mean? Like, how are we gonna fit in 2.5 hours of cardio, a training session, meal prep, and sleep,
Yep.
what little bit we can get. It's difficult. So, I mean, yeah, I think where I notice it, like I said, is that you do hit that wall where I might have someone in a really good groove. We might be doing have a good rotation where they have they're eating throughout the week, and then we do like a refeed or, however their setup is, and their trend works pretty good. They maybe works for 2, 3, 4 weeks. They stall. I make an adjustment. They start progressing again. But eventually you hit that point where, all right, I've made 3 adjustments and nothing's happening, or they've gained weight.
Yep.
Or, God forbid. This is where we're getting into. This is where also we get into the territory of, this is a hard choice as a coach too, because you and me and there are a lot of other coaches too that we are health conscious also. So it's like, what do I need to tell my client? I'm going to have to let them know. Like I'll straight up tell them, I said, look, I want you to be able to get in the best shape of your life. I want you to go. I always use this. I always kind of joke with the clients. It's like, I want the judges to drop their pencils when you walk out.
That's right.
But the thing is, I'm going to forewarn you right now, we're getting into that territory where you're going to have a lot of bad shit happen, and it's going to be really hard, and the post-show period is going to be really hard, and there's going to be a lot of unhealthy stuff in terms of just metabolically and hormonally that we're going to have to fix. If they're a natural competitor, you have this chance of permanently males being permanently hypogonadal. Like, this reality. Like, I mean, it can happen. And you have females, where they're losing their menstrual cycles, of course, and they have permanent, like, they have the chance of not, or very long lasting menstrual cycle disruption and hormonal disruption post show if they're not careful. Mm-hmm. And if they're not doing things correctly. So, like, my thing is, I'll talk to people like, are you ready for this? It sounds dramatic because we're going up on stage for freaking 3 minutes and, in our bikini, but, mm-hmm. but that's reality. Like, I mean, that's just, I'm like, is this something you want to do? Is this something you want to do? Because, I mean, I've made posts about this before. There are just people too that I'm like, no, you don't this isn't for you. Like
yes.
I'm just not, I'm not okay with getting you in that kind of shape. I can probably get you in that shape, but I'm not okay with it. I just don't think that the ramifications are going to be worth it. And it can be a mutual decision too. Like, I talk to people and talk to them about just pros and cons and stuff. But I've told people straight up, and it's a hard thing to say. I'm like, look, it's just not, unless you want to go compete just to do it, which that's not really what I'm about.
Yep.
But, yeah, it's hard. That's a hard discussion to have. But yeah, I definitely am always real with people when I get in that reality, because I did it to myself. That's how that's how I ended up on hormone replacement.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It wasn't, I'm a perfect example. I ended up in the damn hospital. I've ended up on hormone replacement. I've ended up on, X, Y, and Z. I pretty much made the mistake and paid for it. So, all that stuff's very real.
Yep. No, absolutely. I love that last part though, is that I've had a handful of clients where it's not even that things aren't progressing as fast as they should. It's just to get to that extreme conditioning is just not happening. Their body is just not built to hold that little of body fat, and you'll have coaches, you'll have competitors, you'll have they're just not trying hard enough, or they just something's going wrong, or they're lying on their diet or cheating on their diet or something like this. When no, that's at least minimum three over the years that I know that were being infallible on their plans, and just their body was not willing to liberate that fat without going to more extreme measures, which, I wasn't prepared, and neither were they, to put their health in jeopardy, because that's those are the realities of it. And I'm glad that you said that, because there's some points where people are just not meant to be competitors. Like on the flip side, because of how this is a body fat competition, we'll say, it's just like if you are some of the realities of, let's say you're trying to be an Olympic sprinter. You just weren't that fast, and you tried to get faster, and you had all the right coaches, and you had all the right tools, and your speed was still crap. Well, there's going to be nothing that's going to make you get to that level of sprinting. We can't genetically make you better, and that's what I think it will fall down to for these people that just can't genetically get into that kind of competition shape without past extreme measures, we'll call it. So those are the people that just need to really I know, and like you said, those are the really hard conversations to have, and they suck, especially if they are working so hard. And usually they can be some of your best clients in terms of adherence, in terms of being able to jive with them on a personal level. But yeah, I think that's the duty of the coach, to say that, not just take their money, have them show up on stage looking like they're 6 weeks out without any kind of knowledge there, or acknowledging that, which I've seen that too. Some of the other ones that I came up with when you were talking there too, is that there's going to be potential, and usually almost always there's going to be a loss of sex drive in there somewhere, because the body is too busy thinking about keeping itself alive versus wondering about reproducing. All right, let's just be honest. That will go away. Then thoughts about foods and thoughts about cravings will increase, of course, and being able to manage that and recognizing that is something you should be very prepared and very willing to accept. Also, I pay attention to body temperature too. Like if someone's not sweating as much, or someone's not was warm, or someone is getting colder at nighttime, like that's potentially your thyroid slowing down. You just don't have as much of a winter coat for fat on you as much anymore. So that's going to pay attention to it, or add to it as well. Because you talked about too how like they're not burning as many calories walking around. Well, depending upon how many pounds of fat you lose, if it's 20, 30, 40 pounds period, just think about like having that much extra, carrying like a 45-pound vest around with you. What's going to burn more calories during your day? Of course, with the 45-pound vest. So you take that off, you're going to be lighter. Therefore, you're not burning as many calories. Therefore, your cardio is not burning as many calories as well. So that it all adds up. And that's the stuff that when to get that extremely lean, there's going to be those more extreme measures. Like I'll say, like we won't go into it super heavy because we already have the podcast on cyclical dieting and refeeds and when that's to be usage too. But there is. I'll talk about the sciencey stuff just ever so slightly. That your one of your gauging hormones of this stuff is called leptin, and it ends up going down into the gutter pretty good once the calories are not that high, and that's when using strategical usage of refeeds, which is a period in time, usually either overeating volume of carbs or volumes of foods, being able to try to restore not only your thyroid levels, those hormone levels, and then restore your leptin levels, which will help with fat loss. So it's one of those kind of regulation factors where if your leptin's high, then your body can kind of get rid of fat. Can also get rid of your ghrelin, which your hormone that is there. That will go down when you have these refeeds potentially for a couple days. Just being, and that's because I'm a very big firm believer in that. To get to that extreme lean, you're gonna have to use some kind of cyclical dieting, even if it's one or 2 days a week where your food's higher on that one day, just to really try to overcompensate for that. But you have to get ready you have to get to that 10 or 9% for a guy. You have to get to that 16-15% for a girl. You have to start doing refeeds before that. Your body just doesn't need it. There's nothing to refeed from, because you've already got enough fat on the body to be liberated that you don't need that. So starting out with that stuff, or keeping cheat meals in, or things like that, some of that just needs to go. Like when someone says I'm approaching the 12% body fat as a male or something like this, and they're like, hey, I'm just not losing any more body fat. And you take a look at their plan, and their cardio really is pretty darn low, or their daily movement is pretty darn low. Maybe they're an office worker, or maybe they are still having cheat meals in their diet or something like that. Well, that stuff's got to go, because you want that extreme conditioning. You're going to have to do some extreme things usually.
Yeah, it's we talk about using flexible dieting and stuff, and there are a lot of benefits to it, right? Of course, adherence, and you get more nutrient density and all those stuff. But I hate to break it to you, but you're not going to be all that flexible if you're eating nothing. It's just you have to accept the fact too that that's just it. It's going to be hard to adhere to just from the being boring. I mean, in different different people are going to have different struggles. That to some people that part's extremely easy, right? Maybe it's the cardio that's harder for them, or maybe it's the training, or maybe it's just the mental side of just feeling like crap that's hard to them. I know for me, it's just the beyond extreme fatigue that I have the hardest time with. I just do it. I just tell myself, you got to do it. You got to get stuff done. I think it's a blessing and a curse, that luckily I have a lot of people that rely on me for coaching, which holds me accountable, right? Keeps me productive. Mm-hmm. I can't let people down. Okay. So that keeps me routine and productive. But for me, if I had to pick one thing, it would probably just be the undescribable fatigue that is just brutally hard to deal with, because the food and stuff, I can cope with that. I've found enough ways to make it tolerable, or maybe add a little bit of volume to the foods, or just do weird shit to get me through it. I drink my body weight in diet soda shamelessly. Yeah. I don't care. Whatever. That stuff's fine. But I mean, in reality, if you're a male that weighs 200 pounds and you're eating sub 1,500 calories, most of your calories are from protein at that standpoint, or at that point. So, you've got protein and vegetables, and you only have so much. I was go so far as to say my calories got so low that I actually had to restrict certain vegetables.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, unless I want one Brussels sprout, ball or whatever the fuck, I don't know what you call it. It's not a floret. That's broccoli.
I've got no idea what they're called. That's a good question. Maybe it is just a Brussels sprout. Maybe it is a sprout. I don't know.
Yeah, one sprout. I'm like, okay, so I'm pretty much confined to iceberg lettuce, shredded lettuce, and zucchini.
Yeah.
That's it. So it was that, and there was stints too where it was protein veggie with trace fat. So, then you take out things, even your meat variety is restricted. So I'm down to whitefish and egg whites.
Yep.
and maybe chicken tenderloin, not even the breast, because because the tenderloin has less fat than the breast, so that's stuff that you got to think about. Like, are you cool with doing that? I mean, you got to be okay with it. And it might not be, and it's not, and the thing about it is it's not a situation in the off season where you're like, oh yeah, I will reward myself on the weekend with a little meal out with my spouse or whatever. No, that's gone. Your routines, that's not there.
That's right.
You can't, like, there is no relief. I talked about it because a lot of people ask me too, because I wrestled competitively, for such a long time, and there's the whole weight component, and people do a lot of extreme stuff. But the thing is, they ate on the weekends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, wrestling was nothing. Even the most extreme weight cut for wrestling couldn't even hold a candle to what I would have to do in prep for bodybuilding.
Right.
Not even comparable. So yeah, you got to think there's just no relief. Like, it's always going to be there. There's always going to be something reminding you that, man, this is really tough.
Yeah.
So however you have to convince yourself to get through it, you get through it. And then again, like we're talking about, after it's over, then you have to have something in your mindset that's going to also keep you on track in the in that post-show period. Otherwise you probably won't have the chance or opportunity or desire to ever compete again, because you're gonna be in a really bad spot, and you're not gonna have a very good relationship with the whole competitive process.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
You just hate it. I mean, how many people just had bad experiences and then they blame bodybuilding? I'm like, well, I mean, I think that's kind of a cop out. It's like, yeah, that's, of course it was bodybuilding. That was what you were doing, but you just didn't execute the way that you're supposed to. And it's not, people just 50-50. I mean, people just have bad guidance.
Sure. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I see that a little bit too much, that people can blame their coach and like accountability, but I also see it the other way around as well. So 50-50 would be there, maybe 60-40 depending upon the situation. But yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you, and at a point, like, I have no motivating words for the client.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
yeah. You go read as many motivating quotes and watch as many training videos on YouTube that'll fire you up and stuff. But it goes to a point where it's just, use this, follow the systems, follow the habits. Don't rely on willpower, because it won't be there. You got to rely on a lot of that stuff. Yep. Remember everyone, this is extreme conditioning. This is not, we're not talking about dieting. This is not what you have to go through if you're looking to lose 10 pounds before Sally's wedding. No, this is the realities of extreme conditioning.
I always tell people this too, is, because you see people on social media and they glorify things. They're all fired up, right? And then they even, and then throughout early in their contest prep, and as their contest prep goes on, but those people that are really hurting really bad, they're pretty damn quiet at the end.
Yep.
They aren't saying shit. And you know what? And the only thing I can really tell a client at that point is, it's really easy to execute. And this is anything in life. I mean, you can apply this to whatever. It's extremely easy to execute when everything's going right and you feel good. But
yes,
when the situation is hard, you feel like shit. Everything's going seemingly, playing out of your favor, not in your favor. That's what counts, though. I mean, that's where you get extreme conditioning, because you're doing that and the other person isn't.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where you separate yourself. It's not difficult to go and crush a workout when you're like all pumped up to do it and you're feeling good. That's not hard. Congratulations. You were excited to do something, so you did it because you liked it. Like, why is that an accomplishment?
Yeah.
That's not an accomplishment. It's a freaking accomplishment when, you know, when you can't get out of your damn chair and, you know, because you're so damn tired and you feel like crap and you're eating nothing, and then you go do what you're supposed to do. Now that's something to maybe pat yourself on the back for, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect, man. Well,
So.
I think that's pretty damn good. That's going to give you the overview of what to expect, things that you might have to sink in to do, things to be aware of, and then also to make sure that after this point of being extremely conditioned that you have like a game plan or at least a system or a habit in place. So, yeah. Anything else from you?
Go back and listen to the reverse dieting episode to kind of add to this, to give you a little extra context, I would say.
Yep. No, absolutely. Perfect. All right then, everybody. From Austin and Marty here at the Mind Body Broadcast. We'll catch you next time.